Welcome to this ATA Insights webinar. Thank you for your ongoing interest and support of our webinar program. Today's session will begin in 2 minutes. ATA Insights Webinars is an online platform for the dissemination of professional renewable energy knowledge across international borders. Our aim is to democratize access to information, for innovation to spread faster, and to make the industry more competitive. And we do this through our online sessions, open to all our members. Every year we do more than 100 sessions with over 250 speakers, 50,000 attendees from more than 50 countries. To participate in the session today, use the chat on the right-hand side to introduce yourself, your company, and where you're joining from. Under the screen, you will find the Q&A box, where you can send your questions for the speakers. We will get to as many as we can today. We're recording this session, and we will send you a link to the materials in a few days. Please consider supporting our content creation for the webinar program. Contact us on the email on screen.
Hi to everyone. Good morning. So we are taking a bit of time to see if people are joining. And for the moment, I'm sharing my screen with the presentation. I hope you can see the presentation. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I can start already. So my name is Alina. Hello to everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. Today we would talk more on this social science questions, let's say, which impact the concentrated solar power technologies. And with us today we have our great guests. It's Celia García-Baños from IRENA and Yelda Erden Topal from CST for All. They will follow my presentation. And first I would start more from the overview, let's say, of policy frameworks which is needed for the CSP expansion. Just to present very briefly myself, I'm Alina, and I'm co-founder of Women Plus in Concentrated Solar group. I would talk a bit more about this group later, but just to start maybe already with some market updates, which is going on in our CSP sector recently. As you might see, we had very unstable CSP additions. This is more in terms of the CSP additions every year. And as you might see, for example, in 2023, we had quite a lot of CSP capacity added due to the United Arab Emirates new CSP power plant DEVA commissioned. And in 2024, we had 250 megawatt in China commissioned, plus 100 megawatt of CSP in Redstone power plant in South Africa. So this brings us, the CSP sector, more or less to 7 gigawatt of installed capacity over the year. But also maybe something to note, what you can see, CSP sector started quite concentrated in several countries. It's first started in US, then it went to the Spain with quite many power plants only constructed in Spain. And then we have still some sort of a diversification within many different countries. We started also with CSP power plant commissioning. And now we can see actually again a little bit of concentration for the deployment for new or under constructed or planned power plant announced so far. We can see them mainly in China. Under construction, we have 3.3 gigawatt, which hopefully will be operational by 2026 or further. And we have planned power plants around 4.7 gigawatt, and those are spread within different provinces and may not really be commissioned finally, but this is something what the market expects. Yet it's mainly concentrated in China. So for the moment, we did not have any announcement of big CSP power plants coming in other countries. So just to tell you a bit more about this CSP policy, which triggered this rapid development in China. It started with research and development support. Actually, research started in China already in the 80s with universities starting a lot of research work there. And it completed with actually the first 1 megawatt solar tower in Asia constructed in Beijing, in Yanqing, in Chinese Academy of Science. Then, because of this more transition from the research to the developing stage, we had already feed-in tariff policy established by the government, and it was from 2012 to 2020 when around 8 projects benefited this feed-in tariff policy. Yet in 2021, there was a major policy shift, and all feed-in tariffs were abolished, not only for the CSP, but also for PV and wind. And provincial government were responsible actually for setting the incentives. And in 2021, there were many provincial government who actually announced support policy for CSP power plants. But it's interesting to understand a bit more maybe the reason behind why it was so interesting for the provincial governments. Basically, there was a lot of PV and wind power plants construction in China. Yet up a certain level, the grid would need some sort of a flexibility. So provincial government would require PV and wind developers, if they surpass certain level, to add the storage. And they would require more than 6 hours of storage. And when we talk about the storage requirement of more than 6 hours, straight away the thermal energy storage becomes more interesting from economic point of view. That's how CSP with thermal energy storage actually entered this policy support market. This policy support got this policy support, and more and more project came online. And now in China, it's mainly hybrid projects. They are PV, which is more or less 900 megawatt, wind sometimes as well, and CSP with thermal energy storage. Another technological mainstream which happens in China now, it's what CSP field is reducing. As we have quite a lot of PV and wind, we don't really need such a vast solar camps. And solar camps were actually responsible for the majority of the costs in CSP technology, and this reduced the cost of overall CSP project. So those are some technological shifts which we see, which actually brought the CSP technology to made it legislative in China, and actually included it even in the main energy law, which was just published recently in 2025, and where CSP is mentioned explicitly. And this actually gives this federal, not only provincial, but also the federal support in terms of the grid assessment and in terms of some other support policies. In terms of, so for the cost decline, it's also quite, it happened quite rapidly. So in 2018, we had capex in China around 4,000 USD per kilowatt, and it decreased to 2,241 USD per kilowatt. So we had 45% of the decrease. For LCOE, the decrease was less, but still quite rapid. It was from 0.11 in 2018, more or less 2019, to 0.09 USD per kilowatt in 2025. And we see a lot of, in the reports from China, which coming from China, we see a lot of the forecasting with further decrease announced for the LCOE. By the way, this all information what I'm showing today, it's from the Blue Book of Chinese Alliance, Industrial Alliance. So this is actually accessible also online. Those are some key factors for CSP development. What country needs to do actually for the CSP development? Of course, the first of all, it's a policy and finance. You need to have a stable policy with affordable loans, with affordable cheap money. Then a second condition for the technology to succeed in this country is, of course, the national market and solar resources. National market in China is big, and it gives China advantage in all renewables technologies, and CSP is not exception of that. Plus, it's if we compare it with PV, CSP is very complex technology. So you need to have a local operation of this power plant, so the operators would know how to improve the technology. Then the local industry is also, I would say, a must. This is something which is important as well for the incentives from the government for the government to incentivize and to understand why they would support this technology. China is quite present in all value chain of CSP technology already. And research and development investments is also very important, and this is something what China was doing already for quite some times. Innovation. And finally, we can say with skilled workforce is also a must. This expertise what China had in coal power plants, in nuclear power plant, definitely brought this advantage to Chinese companies to very quickly adapt some technologies to the CSP demand and to the CSP sector. Final, actually, let's say, ingredient in this success of CSP is also diversity. I think it's very important to have this diversity of women, diversity of different unrepresented genders in research group, and this brings a lot of innovation. This is something what we would like to bring during this webinar, and emphasize for also for TSP development, but not only. So it's already was actually shown by the scientists, and what the gender balance teams have been performing much better. They foster creativity, and more you have diverse groups, more innovation you would actually have, as many different people, they see this problem differently, and sometimes you can see you can bring those new approaches to the old problems. So how can we do it actually? This is an important policy objective as well, which should be done. And there are plenty of different possibilities. For example, we can do the special vacation, the training programs for women. We can provide women entrepreneurs with access to dedicated finance and investment opportunity. Obviously, we need to collect more gender aggregated data, and this is something what Yelda actually will further tell us a bit. We need to encourage renewable energy companies to adopt more inclusive recruitment practices, implement gender-sensitive energy policy, so more parental leave quota, so that women will be more comfortable actually to work and to contribute to this sector. And maybe also finally, together with local NGO, conduct campaigns to raise awareness about the importance of gender diversity, because it's not always that explicit. Those are some policy issues that every one of you actually can implement, and sometimes we are asked by the government, what can we do more? We are asked by the NGOs, we can contribute it somehow through our work day-by-day routine. So this is, I hope, will be included by all of you. And just very briefly, actually, to introduce to our Women Plus in Concentrated Solar group. This is also a response to this diversity, which is needed sometimes in CSP sector. Our group was created in Albuquerque during the Solar Basis Conference in 2022. This is our, for the moment, team, which are more the most motivated women who are there trying to bring to you all those webinars and activities to promote more visibility for women in CSP. We also developed this expert database, and I hope this will be something very interesting to all of you participating on this webinar. For example, if you would need some special expert in thermal energy storage or other concrete areas of expertise, you can go to this expert database and find female speaker or female specialist on the area you need. We also do the mentorship program, and this is actually now we're starting the second already mentorship program this year. So if you would want to join, please let me know, and we can still register you as a mentee or mentors. And please don't forget to get involved, follow our activity in social media, and reach if you have any comments. Yeah, and I think that's all. So now, as I was mentioning already, we will learn a bit more about this diversity importance with the example from European Green Deal, and from Yelda, who will tell us a bit more about that. Thanks, Yelda. Feel free to share the screen. And I'm reminding for the moment that Yelda is sharing her screen. Please write your questions to Q&A. We will be happy to answer those questions at the end of the webinar. Go ahead, Yelda.
Yes, I think you can see my screen and you can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, very
Great.
good, thanks.
For a while to start the full screen. Great. I think it's fine now. And thank you for the introduction, Alina, also, and for thank you for this opportunity to present our work in CST for All project. It's an Horizon Europe project. It will finish in this year, at the end of this year, but we can include social science and humanities and gender aspects for this project by to deal the Green Deal challenges. This work is still an ongoing work, and we are doing this with my colleague Hande Yilmaz from the ODTÜ Günam Solar Research Center at Middle East Technical University, where I am. And also we are doing this research together to find some SSH and gender aspect solutions to Green Deal challenges by focusing on the CST area, mainly in Europe. This is the main aims of our project. This project mainly aims to catalyze an area of hybridization and cooperation initiatives at the interface between CST and other renewable energy technologies. So the main aim in this project is to boost cooperation between CST and other renewable energy technologies. And the second aim is to promote a diversified use of concentrated solar thermal technology applications, combining technology improvements and market volume and risk financing to support energy projects. So main aim is to boost cooperation between renewable energy technologies, other renewable energy technologies as CST. And by doing this, we are trying to find out how SSH and gender aspects can contribute these main aims. Okay. It's not flowing right yet. Okay. So what's our main topic today? Social sciences and humanities aspects in, to deal with Green Deal challenges. CST for All aims to collect data on stakeholder perspectives. Who are the stakeholders? Stakeholders are the whole community, mainly including the CST researchers and CST industrial participants, and the other cooperative renewable energy technology stakeholders. And this project, this part of the project mainly aims to collect data on stakeholders' perspectives on how social sciences and humanities can contribute to overcome key Green Deal challenges. What are they? The cross-sectoral collaboration, technology adoption, societal transformation, public support, social acceptance, and gender inclusion. So we are trying to find out main contributions of SSH and gender aspects in such Green Deal challenges in our community. Who is the participants of this community? The participants are the workshop participants of our community, which are conducted under this project. Okay. And we are trying to have two strategies to deal with Green Deal challenge. First, to boost networking and communication, so to say, to boost cooperation. The second one, to exploit SSH contributions to overcome challenges in main policy documents and action plans. We will see the details in the methodology part. So SSH perspective through the CST for All project is emphasized through an inclusive economic, social, and policy discourse in cooperation with experts working in renewable energy, R&I, industry, and markets. And the main pillar of SSH contribution in this work is to develop strategies to decouple economic growth from resource use and assure a just transition with no one left behind. Okay, so the main motivation first, to ensure diversity, plurality, and inclusivity for designing a holistic policy framework for market integration of concentrated solar thermal technologies at EU level. And the second one is to examine main Green Deal challenges of, I mentioned before, cross-sector collaboration, technology adoption, social acceptance, just transition, and gender inclusiveness from stakeholders' perspective, okay? What we have done for this, we first review the state of the art, and we are still conducting public opinion surveys with the workshop for participants. Which documents we reviewed for the state of art, Repower EU, the Green Deal Industrial Plan, EU actions, and gender equality strategy. This deliverable is submitted in 2023, at the end of 2023. That's why these documents are a little bit, how to say, at the beginning of the project, but it is still possible to update this state of the art during the survey results, because we will have another deliverable at the end of the project to give the roadmap for CSD stakeholders to include SSH and gender aspects to deal with Green Deal challenges, okay? So survey results will provide critical inputs to renewable energy technologies as SSH implications, gender inclusiveness and equality activities of the stakeholders, and the main pillars of gender equality in R&I activities of the participants, okay? And this is our survey. Also, you are invited to if you want to. And what this survey includes, it includes 6 profile questions about the participant of the survey, 20 topic questions about these Green Deal challenges and their integration to the, and your solutions and the institutional approaches to these Green Deal challenges. And this data is the main source of our deliverable I mentioned before, roadmap to overcome Green Deal challenges relevant to CSD with SSH contributions. Okay, what are the preliminary results? Up until now, since our first workshop in 2023 November, we conducted 4 R&D workshops and 3 industry workshops with approximately 1,000 participants for all these workshops, and we will have 2 more workshops until April. Okay, the survey is completed by 127 unique workshop participants, and some participants filled the surveys twice for different contexts of the workshops, and the preliminary result says that please increase communication, dissemination, and participation of gender roles in the renewable energy sector, okay? Including all the renewable energy technologies specifically, and with the cross-sector collaboration of these technologies horizontally, okay? Also, please support joint identification of research and market needs for renewable energy. So do not identify the needs by yourself, man, he says. The survey result says, okay? Motivate clear definition of intersectional and cross-sectoral areas for the policymakers, regulators, and standardization institutions to deal with the project work. So intersectional and cross-sectoral areas are very, very important. So you need to sit on a table and need to discuss all these dimensions together, okay? It says also predetermine, not after the post-determine, we can say, the targets for gender inclusiveness for the number of participants, okay? Please do it at the beginning, okay? Initiate with these targets for gender inclusiveness. Put it in your agenda for at the proposal stage it says, okay? Establish and support women NGOs such as WIRE, Women in Renewable Energy, SEVA, Self-Employed Women Association, Women in CSD, as Alina is one of the co-founders of this NGO, and invite these NGOs, which can become at least observers to renewable energy projects. This is very important. Okay, you can do this. You can put the gender and SSH perspectives by taking them in the desk. Okay, this is very critical. It is not enough to invite the women researchers in the projects. Okay, you need to think in that way. Okay, this is also important. And it's not going. Oh, yes. Provide dedicated personnel to gender equality monitoring and activities in the units of each organizations that are active in ERA. So do not make it as to be seen as making, okay? You need to provide dedicated personnel, provide dedicated experts who have that expertise and approach in their education, in their skill building, to monitor gender equality activities in your institutions and in your all activities, okay? And be aware of the glass ceiling phenomenon and have institutional strategies to deal with, okay? This is also still, unfortunately, still is a problem in all European projects. We can experience this in our project too. So be aware of this glass ceiling phenomenon, okay? And promote gender equal working environments, okay? You need to promote this one. You need to be aware of this one. And promote gender equality in careers at all levels, gender balances in decision-making, and integration of the gender dimension into the content of RNI, okay? And pay attention to gender equality in project management, the equipment suitable for ergonomics of men and women, security measures for female and male use, for example. Okay, and pay attention to gender equality in outputs and results. So to say, the impacts on time use patterns of men and women, women's access to natural resources, and equality in the beneficiaries of the project results. So these are our main preliminary results. And we still continue to collect data, and at the end of this year, we will finalize the research and submit our deliverable too. Thanks for your time and attention, and I will be happy to answer your questions. Alina?
Thank you very much, Yelda, and that was very interesting results you had during the research. And I'm sure we will discuss them a bit more in details after. And
Okay,
now we
great.
will go to Celia, and she will actually give us even broader overview, not only on gender questions, but more on jobs and local employment opportunity. This is also the most important topic, especially when we go to some new countries and we want to implement the CSP. All the policymakers want to know, like, how many people will employ. So Celia has an answer. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you for organizing and inviting me and Irena to present these findings. I'm very happy also to have been a witness of Yelda's and your presentation, Alina. I've learned a lot. As Alina mentioned, I'm going to be talking about jobs, but not just jobs. Just to give a little bit of an overview of what Irena is doing and what we are aiming for, and maybe also an overview of what IRENA is, because I'm not sure how familiar the audience is with IRENA. IRENA is an intergovernmental organization with close to global membership, not full global yet, but getting close. With a mission to promote renewable energy and an energy transition that is heavily based on renewable energy technologies. However, not at any cost. And this is where the team that I work on takes a big role on is we want an energy transition, but to be just and inclusive, that leaves no one behind, and it is sustainable. So it has a very people and planet-centered approach in that sense. So in this regard, we have been over the last more than a decade working on how to translate this uptake and deployment of renewable energy into creating local value. We started with what we call our annual jobs review. It's a series of reports that estimates the number of jobs that are being created every year in the renewable energy sector, and not only by numbers, by technology. We also talk about how different regions and different countries are faring differently. To keep in mind again that jobs can be a powerful tool to create economic development. So our objective is to advocate for renewable energy to create jobs locally. In this sense, the work stream also expanded to not only talk about the jobs nowadays or the previous year, but also what could be the projections that these jobs could be created through different pathways, different scenarios, again, with a very ambitious uptake of renewable energy. Likewise, these jobs, we want them to be for everybody, not just for a few selected countries and a few selected genders. So we have a dedicated series of reports that specifically talk about the share of women in this in the employment, in the workforce of renewable energy. And last but not least, and this is why I am presenting today, we also have a series of reports that tries to assess the local capacities needed to deploy selected technologies. As you can see in the slide, we have already 6 publications. Concentrated solar power is the latest. And as I will give a little bit more of information later on, I'll leave it there. So as I mentioned, we have been working over the years on what is the evolution of jobs across renewable energy technologies. And we can see that solar PV has been faring very well. Concentrated solar power, not so much. And more data can be seen in the reports. Again, this is not the objective of this particular series of reports alone. We also talk about the nuances and the policies to make sure that there's a decent job agenda at the center. But we can see that some technologies have better than others, but all of them are growing, and I think it's important to highlight this. Likewise, as I mentioned before, we have also been doing this analysis, this assessment on what is the share of women in the different technologies, and just as a snapshot, a summary of the 3 reports that we have on large-scale technologies. We have first a global analysis on all renewable energy technologies together that estimates that the workforce is roughly a third of the total is from women, while wind energy does not fare that well, with almost only a fifth of the total, which is very similar to what the oil and gas has been estimated. However, solar PV technology has gives a little bit more hope on achieving gender parity with an average of 40%. This is the global average, but unfortunately, once we get deeper analysis into what sort of roles women are playing in the different technologies, it is consistently unfortunate that women do not have such a fair or a decent participation when it's in senior management positions. That declines very abruptly, as Yelda was mentioning. The glass ceiling exists, and there's ways to fix it, but we're far behind from that. But likewise, also in STEM careers compared to administrative positions, our analysis showed consistently that women in administrative positions or the global percentage of women are mostly going to administrative positions versus STEM careers. Being said that, as I also mentioned before, at IRENA we have done different analyses or our analysis try to also see what are these differences between countries, between regions, and we can see how small how most of these jobs are accumulated in a selected number of countries and regions. So there's no, this energy transition, these benefits of employing renewable energy does not reach to all the regions and to all the countries equally. So this is why we need to make sure that we advocate for the right set of policies and we create value and not just, it is not just a transition for the sake of being a transition. It has to really have that angle of creating jobs locally and to make sure that people and communities are benefit from it. That's why our macroeconomic model proposed a pathway aligned with the 1.5 degrees scenario in line with the Climate Paris Agreement, where we could see a little bit more of balance and more regions benefiting versus the very disaggregated and the very unbalanced picture that we have today. In that sense, concentrated solar power, as I mentioned before, is not a large employer yet. Alina has made a very good job at giving the overview of what is the current status. So we know that it cannot be competing with solar PV deployment, for example, but there's a lot of potential to create jobs and with that also create, contribute to the local GDP of the different countries by doing properly cumulative investments and being ambitious on the deployment of the technology in 2030 and 2050. I'm giving just a snapshot. There's more details in the report. And just to also mention, I'm not an expert, of course, on the technology. So unfortunately, I could not provide any much of an overview of the technology. You are more experts for sure on it. I'm providing the overview of how the analysis and why is the analysis important and why we did it. In that sense, again, I'm keeping in mind the objective of this line of reports that we want to make sure that we create value, that there's opportunities for local development and local contributions through any technology, in particular CSP. I have this slide as the disaggregation of what we have considered a unit of the value change that the CSP plant could take from the project planning to the decommission and the different activities relative to time. Why is this important? Again, it may not be the most accurate. It is the generic approach or the framework that we have created to make sure that the analysis falls into or makes sense to what I'm explaining. Why I say this? Because we discuss, as Alina also mentioned, what is the distribution of labor across the value chain. So this is why I was explaining. This is a very simplified version of what would come into detail for what has been taken in consideration. Of course, as in other analyses that we have done, we need to decide a unit for this analysis. We do not create this analysis per megawatt. We decide what would be a typical facility that a given country could deploy. And in the case of CSP, we decide to go with a 100 megawatt plant with 10 hours of thermal energy storage of capacity. So the analysis is consistent with this unit. In that sense, we can see that we have estimated that over 1.16 million person days could go into the development from project planning again to the commission of this facility, which can translate into a lot of jobs, particularly in the different segments of the value chain. Again, this analysis is also to highlight where is more opportunities for creating value across this value chain for the different countries. As we can see in this slide, most of these jobs are going to engineering, procurement and construction, EPC, and operation and maintenance. Why operation and maintenance is so high? Well, basically because it's where the unit that we're using is person days. So keep in mind this, it's not full-time equivalent, it's not jobs per se, it's the person, it's the effort that could take. And operation and maintenance is the only job that is consistently over the years of the plant actively for the full lifespan, which we consider 23 years again, as a measure, more and more with efficiencies and with proper operation and maintenance, I think the lifespan of the different technologies is increasing, which is great news. But as you need to discuss, and we also consider some productivity gain in labor because across the years, normally things get automatized or there's more expertise in-house, so some duties may take less time or require less time. So we also have accounted for that. But it's not only about how many person days or what could be the total of the effort. We also want to know what are the capacities that are required for the whole value chain. And this is why we discuss as well the distribution of skills or the occupational profiles for the development of this facility that we have set as our boundaries. In that sense, our analysis showed that a big bulk of the jobs go to medium and low certification. It's not all highly technical, highly education, university, postgraduate. It's not that. That is a big importance, is of course a critical part of the effort of the person days go to those type of skills, but a lot of them may require lower certifications and more vocational training oriented capacities, which is something that some countries are failing to update, are failing to keep up. And there's a big risk that as the years move on and as we pass and the energy transition unfolds, there's a skill shortage, particularly in these capacities. The analysis also shows the material requirements for, in this case, two different analyses, the solar tower and the parabolic through. Our objective of this report is not to be specifically saying to the millimeter or to the milligram how much this goes. It's also to highlight how a lot of the materials that are required are quite available, and that also can create parallel supply chains and industries within a country. So it's that way we can localize, or countries can determine how to localize those capacities as well instead of exporting, importing. If there's a long-term plan and there's already a consistent plan ahead, there's room for countries to organize, to plan, so the value can be maximized. So that is, again, the objective, although I think the consultants and the team that helped us with the analysis was very accurate, so I will say that. Anyway, across the report, I have only given a few snapshots of this, but the disaggregation of all the capacities, the labor and the skills are for all the value chain, or for all the segments of the value chain. In this one, I wanted to highlight the operation and maintenance, because as I mentioned, this is an effort that goes across every of the year that the facility is open. So this could be considered as the full-time equivalent jobs as well. But again, with the same sense of seeing like how many of these jobs could be easily localized or could be anticipated, that the people in a country have those capacities, because again, there can be a learning curve, and with proper planning in advance, that the educational misalignments, let's say, that the energy transition could create, are the easiest to be fixed. And with this, I reach the end of my presentation. In the report, we highlight some recommendations, like, of course, creating clear renewable energy targets. Again, once it is important to have the targets and the national contributions to be very clear, so that allows for long-term planning and creating the development to ensure the stability, that it should be with specific targets for renewable energy, to make sure that renewable energy penetration is properly accepted. I think in that sense, CSP is a privilege of the technology, because storage is included, so that gives an advantage, and that countries need to be considering that. Of course, local content and domestic procurement should be given always a priority, to ensure that the local materials and the labor requirements are utilized to the maximum, with, of course, as Alina and Yelda have been mentioning, always having the inclusion in mind to make sure that not only is a country benefiting, but all the vulnerable people and groups that have been traditionally been left behind or excluded from the energy sector can be included. And this, of course, can be done through incentives, through tax reliefs, etc., to encourage local sourcing. That also will allow to strengthen local supply chains, which is critical through industrial policies, supplier development programs, technical assistance, fiscal incentives, which, again, as we have seen, economic shocks or surprise pandemics can come in place. And it is very important to have that local supply chains as strong as possible. Again, also targeting financing investment incentives, especially for CSP growth. It has been a technology that has not been so active as other technologies, but there's a lot of potential, and it provides more solutions than many of the other technologies. And encouraging innovation and research and development, technology transfer, knowledge exchange, again, that's critical. I think Alina also mentioned a lot of good practices from China. So I think that is that policy framework is very important. It's very critical. And last but not least, the community engagement is and the inclusion is very critical. How to engage communities, how to make sure that the local communities are up to date and they can play a role in the energy transition, and it's always important to keep them included. All these, of course, under the framework that we call at IRENA our holistic policy framework, where we think like the energy transition has to be in accordance with the economy, with the society, and with the planet. We cannot think of the energy sector in isolation. It cannot be treated as a sector that does not have any connection. Everything has to be created or has to be considered as a whole, and very holistically. And policies need to be in place, not only deployment policies, as I was mentioning, to advance the energy transition as fast as possible. They has to be in combination with integration policies, enabling policies, structural change and just transition policies to ensure that really nobody is left behind. And yeah, this is what we call the holistic policy framework. So with that in mind, my presentation is done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Celia. Yeah, that was very holistic presentation as well. Thank you very much. And let's go to the questions then. We have still 8 minutes left. I would encourage everyone to put your questions in Q&A chat box, not in the chat. But for the moment, what we are with Celia presentation in mind, maybe I can already address the first question to you, Celia. Marina is asking, what's the reason why in Europe the jobs for 2030 will not increase that much compared to other regions? You mentioned it in the slides 4.
Yes, the slide 4 was presenting both the jobs nowadays and the jobs to 2030. This is based on a macroeconomic model that takes into account what is the national determined contributions and what are the countries' plans already in the pipeline. So this requires for a larger uptake. Truth to be told as well, Europe in that sense, in deployment-wise, it may be more advanced for all the renewable energies that other regions. So that is also why maybe there's some comparison, or the comparison is not as much. But again, not because Europe, although I think all the countries and all the regions can be more ambitious, it's not because there's not enough, it's that because finally other regions should catch up in that sense. So that is, there's a list of reports that explain more in the macroeconomic model that I put in my first slide. I'm also happy to share with the organizers to share with the whole list a number of reports that may be providing a little bit more light to this and other topics.
Yeah, great, indeed. I'm sure within Europe there is a lot of possibilities as well for the jobs increase in renewables. as you were mentioning. And another question we have in the Q&A chat box, and it's not really mentioning for one of the speakers, so please feel free to add to my answer, but maybe I will just take it. Which country except China has potential for CSP technology by Thierry? And we had similar answer, question also on what are other countries which with a good policy and technological perspectives. I would say what I would really want to say every country, but I know but maybe it will not really answer the question. But I think especially recently we saw a lot of new CSP power plants in MENA regions. Some of the governments like United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, Egypt also recently launched even this request for the interest for the CSP power plants. This is the region definitely with so much of the perspective and so much of the opportunity for CSP technology. They all need flexible, renewable power. They all have great solar resources, and I guess those are very perspective region. I would also mention South Africa as especially in terms of the policy what they established. I will send a link to a very good journal article on the CSP legitimation, which was written by Richard and Johan, my very good colleagues on CSP topic. And they are talking quite in details on this CSP policy. Because their focus was exactly like more to focus on the local employment, to focus on the local impact of CSP power plant in the region, and this is actually quite important for the further development. And of course, Chile. Chile is one of the greatest places, I would say, to develop this technology. Yet there's no special policy for that. And I don't know if you want to add something, Celia or Yelda.
If you don't mind, I would add, in the report that I was presenting, we had a couple of case studies. One is Spain, one is South Africa, especially speaking precisely about the strong policy framework that Alina was mentioning. And I think, as you also said, there's a lot of potential in a lot of countries because sun is very available. I am based in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi, Saudi should also be very strong. And in the case of UAE, there has been advancement in that sense as well. But I wanted to speak just to give a resource that IRENA also has. It's called resource assessment. So there's and you can see that in the report as well, because the case studies that I mentioned, Spain and South Africa, we put the plans on what is the resource availability of the countries, and you can go online and see what it says for different technologies. So just to explain that from IRENA's perspective. Thank you.
Maybe I can add something too. When we think about concentrated solar thermal technologies, we can have the applications and implications of this technology, not just electricity. Okay, we can use this technological solutions for cooling and heating, solar fuels, especially for solar heat for industrial processes, the heat needed for industrial processes, and water desalination. So that means these technologies are not just for the electricity production. For different levels of solar DNI levels and different levels of different levels of heat, okay, heat needs. Okay, we can use this technology solutions. So it is not just electricity. Okay, these implications have different at least 5 kinds of applications, and you can benefit from this technology solutions. That means it is a huge potential. In addition to electricity production in concentrated solar and thermal technologies, we can also count in we need to take in this into consideration too.
Yeah, thank you, Yelda. Indeed, there are plenty of the applications
Yes.
there. And Thierry, just to follow up on what you're mentioning, for the moment, the PPA in progress for CSP, I would say, as I was mentioning, it's mainly China. I'm not aware of any other countries which currently have some support policy, special support policy. But I'm inviting you all to follow the Solar Paces news. Normally, if something happens, this is like the first channel to announce some new CSP power plants happening there. I know that we have almost no time, but I still wanted to ask Yelda one more question, actually. You were saying one of the important outcomes was to promote gender equality in career, and I'm sure that we have many people here from CSP companies or maybe other institutions. So maybe you can elaborate a bit further, like how actually we can promote this gender equality. Thanks.
First of all, maybe we can first think together, okay? Because this technology is not a gender specific one. So the solutions also need not to be the gender specific. So that means we can come together and try to specialize the tasks, the jobs to complete during the value chain or during the whole value chain. So first step can be this one, okay? Because it is possible to do this. So the local, as you said, you underline very much, local labor force, especially for the places where the solar energy is a abundant source, okay, is very important. So that means especially for the daily needs, to provide the daily needs of the societies, we can include the gender roles and their inclusion to all levels of value chain by thinking about from the first step to identify the task to complete and to needs to accomplish. Okay, so I think this is the first step. I can say this at the beginning.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. I just saw actually there is one question to Celia about the roadmap for the energy storage security. Celia, can you please comment on that?
Sorry, I was having issues to connect. The roadmap does include a storage, but I don't think it's an independent one. I'm happy otherwise to provide my email. I'm happy to follow up because I'm not the expert working on the roadmaps per se. There's a dedicated team to that, and I'm happy to liaise any questions if interested.
Perfect. Yeah, indeed. I would welcome everyone to check the website of IRENA, CST for all women in CS network, and there are plenty of the resources there, which I'm sure will be interesting for all of you. And I think with that, thank you very much for participants and especially for the speakers for this insightful speeches and these ideas what you provided, actually how we can increase the diversity inclusion in CSP, and hopefully this will be one of the ingredient for CSP development further in until 2030, 2050 to reach those targets Celia mentioning. Thank you again, and this webinar will be also recorded, and you will find the link in case you missed some of the parts of this. Yeah, thanks. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.